All right, let's dive in. Today, we're unlocking the modern product manager's toolkit. And look, this isn't just another list of popular apps. Think of it more like a strategic blueprint. We've synthesized insights from over 10,000 tech leaders to show you the tech stack that's really going to define product success in the very near future. Let's get started. This quote right here, it perfectly captures the massive shift that's happening. For product managers, this means AI isn't just another feature you tack onto your product. No, it's the new operating system for how you actually do your job. It is the foundation for pretty much everything we're about to cover. So here's how we're going to break it down. We've got 5 key pillars. We'll kick things off with that foundation, AI as your new OS. Then we'll see how that layer powers everything else, your team's collaboration, how you drive execution, and how you get those deep user insights. And to wrap it all up, we'll talk about how to actually build a smart, integrated stack that works for you. Okay, first up, AI, your new product management operating system. And this is about so much more than just making tasks go faster. It's about fundamentally supercharging your ability to think strategically.
So what do we really mean by an AI copilot? Honestly, think of it less like an assistant and way more like a strategic partner for your brain. It's not about replacing your gut feeling, it's about giving that intuition superpowers. It handles the cognitive heavy lifting, sifting through complex data, drafting initial documents, even spotting market gaps, so you can operate at a much higher level, focusing on what really matters, strategy and empathy for your users.
What's so fascinating is how specialized these AI copilots are becoming. I mean, you wouldn't use a hammer to drive a screw, right? It's the same idea. You might use ChatGPT for some broad creative brainstorming, but then you'd pivot to Claude to really dig in and find the subtle themes from your latest user interviews. If your whole team lives and breathes Google Workspace, Gemini is a total no-brainer. For that hardcore fact-checked research, Perplexity is your go-to. And crucially, something like GitHub Copilot lets you speak the same language as your engineers, which makes those technical discussions way more productive. Let's make this feel real. Picture this, you're defining a new feature. Using ChatGPT, you can brainstorm a bunch of user stories, crunch competitive data, and even draft entire sections of your PRD in a fraction of the time. But this last step? This is a game changer. You can simulate user feedback and basically red team your own ideas before anyone else does. This means you walk into stakeholder meetings with answers to questions that haven't even been asked yet. You're not just faster, you're smarter and way more prepared. Okay, let's move on to our second pillar, the collaboration and comms hub. In our hybrid world, these are the digital spaces that connect the entire product ecosystem and just keep that information flowing smoothly. So this chart shows us a pretty clear divide in the communication world. Slack is still the absolute heartbeat of most startups and agile-focused companies. Its speed and integration ecosystem are just tough to beat. On the other side, you've got Microsoft Teams, which totally dominates the enterprise space, mostly because of how deeply it's woven into Office 365. As a PM, the tool you're using is often a big tell about the culture and scale of your company. So how do you capture that magic, that energy of an in-person workshop when you're all remote? Well, you do it with digital whiteboards like Miro. As the PM, you can set up a board, get your team brainstorming with digital sticky notes, group the ideas, and then have everyone vote. But the most powerful part is when you collaboratively drag those top-voted ideas onto a value versus effort matrix. It's just this incredibly transparent and efficient way to get everyone aligned on what truly matters most. All right, on to our third section, the execution powerhouse. These are the tools that orchestrate the entire development process. They are the single source of truth that takes you from a roadmap all the way to reality. Choosing your project management tool is kind of like choosing a team philosophy. Are you a big enterprise that needs really robust, complex, custom workflows? That's Jira's kingdom for sure. Or are you a startup that's obsessed with speed and making your developers happy? Linear is probably your best bet. Then again, maybe you're a team that just wants to build your own system from scratch, blending docs and tasks together. Well, that's where a super flexible tool like Notion really shines. When it comes to design, let's be real. The debate is over. Figma has won. For a product manager, this means being proficient in it is no longer a nice-to-have. It's a core competency. Why? Because Figma is the shared language between you, your designers, and your engineers. It's the place where the vision actually becomes tangible. Hey, want a killer tip for your next PM interview? Here you go. Describe this exact workflow. You start with a generative AI tool, say Midjourney, to brainstorm a huge range of visual concepts in just minutes. Then, you take the strongest ideas and bring them into Figma to build out wireframes and prototypes for user testing.
Talking like this shows that you're not just following some rigid process, you're leveraging modern tools to be faster, smarter, and way more creative.
And this brings us to a super important warning. It is so easy to fall into the trap of over-tooling, adopting some super complex software that your team just does not need. This absolutely kills productivity. You have to remember the golden rule you see right here. Your tools exist to serve your process, not the other way around. Never let the tool dictate how you work.
Okay, so we have our execution engine, but what are we building and who are we building it for? That brings us right to our fourth pillar, the user insight engine. These are the tools that make sure we're building the right thing by helping us figure out what our users actually want and need. So a modern research toolkit really follows the entire journey of an insight. First, you need people to talk to, which is where a tool like user interviews comes into play. Next, you need to observe their behavior, using platforms like user testing or Maze. You can even grab that in-the-moment feedback with a tool like Sprig. And finally, and this is the most critical step, you have to make sense of all that qualitative data using a synthesis tool like Dovetail.
The process for running one of these tests is actually pretty elegant. You start by clearly defining what you want to learn. Then, you create a realistic scenario for the user. Screen your questions, make sure you're actually talking to the right people. And then the magic happens when you launch the test. You get to watch real users think out loud as they interact with your product. This is exactly how you uncover those game-changing aha moments.
And this brings us right back to our central theme, doesn't it? AI. The real revolution happening in user research isn't just about gathering more data, it's about analyzing it at scale. AI-powered tools like Dovetail can digest hours and hours of interview transcripts, automatically pull out key themes, and connect insights that you might have missed. What used to take weeks of painstaking manual work can now be done in a few hours. That transforms research from a bottleneck into a real strategic advantage.
Okay, last section. Number 5, building your strategic stack. This is where we pull everything we've talked about together, moving from just a random collection of tools to a truly integrated, powerful system.
So how do you do it? How do you build your stack wisely? It really comes down to a few key principles. First, and this is the most important one, assess your needs before you even look at a single tool. What are your team's biggest pain points? Start there. Second, pilot everything. Grab a small group to test new software and get their honest feedback before you roll it out to the whole company. Third, focus on integration. A bunch of tools that don't talk to each other just creates more problems. Finally, provide good training and try to stick to a one-tool, one-purpose philosophy. It keeps your stack lean, mean, and effective.
Look, at the end of the day, building a powerful tech stack is just the first step. The real challenge, and honestly, the real opportunity, is what comes next. So the question I want to leave you with is this. Once you have all these powerful tools in place, are your team's processes, is your culture mature enough to actually unlock their full potential?